Look at that crock on your screen. Heavy stoneware, about the size of a milk pail. It sits in the cellar of a farmhouse outside Bird in Hand, Pennsylvania, and there are 47 dozen eggs floating inside it. 47 dozen. Some of those eggs were laid in March. It is now September. They are still good. The yolks still stand up like little orange domes. Listen to this, $5. That is what the entire preservation system costs. No electricity, no refrigerator, no power bill. $5, and a glass jar of clear liquid that the United States Department of Agriculture stopped recommending in 1948, right after a man from General Electric sat down with 3 federal officials in Washington, D.C., and explained, very politely, that rural America did not need to be taught how to preserve eggs anymore. They needed to be taught how to buy a refrigerator. Your refrigerator costs about $190 a year just to run. The eggs in it last maybe 5 weeks. The Amish woman whose crock I just showed you has not bought a dozen eggs at a grocery store in her entire life. She has not paid an electric bill on her cellar in 3 generations. And the liquid in that crock was sitting on the shelf of every general store in America in 1916. Stay with me until the end, because I am going to show you the exact USDA bulletin where the federal government taught farmers how to do this before they quietly pulled it from circulation. And I am going to give you the one extra step that Sarah Lapp added in 1928 that the bulletin left out. The step that turns a 9-month preservation into 18 months. This is not for survivalists. This is for anyone who has ever opened the refrigerator door at 2 in the morning and wondered why so much of modern life seems designed to make you helpless. Let me take you back to 1916. A typical American farm produced more eggs in spring than a family could eat or sell in a month. Hens lay when the days are long. By April, every henhouse in Pennsylvania, Ohio, and Iowa was overflowing. By December, the hens nearly stopped, and a family that ate 3 eggs a day in spring ate dust by Christmas, unless somebody figured out how to hold those April eggs through the winter. The United States Department of Agriculture knew this. In 1920, they published Farmer's Bulletin No. 1141. The title was Saving Eggs by Preservation Methods. Over 2 million were mailed out, free of charge, to any farmer who wrote in for a copy. The method the USDA recommended above all others was something called water glass. The chemical name is sodium silicate, a clear, slightly thick liquid that looks like watery honey. You mix it 1 part to 10 parts boiled water. You pour it into a stoneware crock. You drop in fresh, unwashed eggs straight from the nest, and you cover the crock with a cloth. That is the entire technique. The sodium silicate seals every microscopic pore in the eggshell. No air gets in, no bacteria gets in. 9 months later, you fish one out, rinse it, and crack it into a skillet. It cooks like it was laid that morning. So why did your grandmother never tell you about this? Because in 1947, the Rural Electrification Administration finally crossed the threshold of more than half of all rural households connected to the grid. Suddenly, there were millions of farmhouses with wires running into them and nothing plugged in. The home appliance industry had been waiting for this moment for 15 years. General Electric, Frigidaire, Westinghouse. They had factories built during the war that were now retooling for civilian production. They needed a market. The American farm wife was the market. A document held today at the National Agricultural Library in Beltsville, Maryland, shows correspondence from October of 1948 between the Bureau of Home Economics and the National Electrical Manufacturers Association. The Bureau agreed to revise its educational materials. Farmer's Bulletin 1141 was quietly removed from active distribution in early 1949. The reason given in the internal memo was alignment with modern home practices. That is bureaucratic English for, we made a deal. By 1985, an entire generation had grown up not knowing the method existed, except in Lancaster County, except in Holmes County, except in the tiny corners of America where nobody got the memo. I drove out to Bird in Hand last spring. There was a woman named Mary Beiler, 67 years old, who runs about 90 hens and has never owned a refrigerator. Her cellar stays at 52 degrees year-round. She showed me the crock her grandmother started using in 1928. The grandmother's name was Sarah Lapp. Sarah had read about water glass in a county extension pamphlet when she was 19, newly married, with no ice house, and a husband who refused to take charity. A gallon of water glass cost 80 cents. It preserved 14 dozen eggs. Sarah preserved eggs every spring of her life until she died in 1971. Mary's mother continued. Mary continued. Mary's daughter, who lives in the next farmhouse over, continues. 3 generations, same crock. Mary's great-grandfather bought that 5-gallon stoneware jar at a farm auction in 1903 for $1.25. I asked Mary how many eggs that crock had preserved over its working life. She thought about it for a moment. She said, "Probably 20,000. Here is how you do it. In your own basement, this week, without a permit, without a contractor, without anyone's permission. You need 4 things. A food-grade stoneware crock or a 5-gallon glass jar with a tight lid, $8 to $30. A quart of sodium silicate solution, sold online as isinglass or water glass for egg preservation, $15. A gallon of distilled water, $3. And fresh, unwashed, unrefrigerated eggs straight from a hen. The eggs must never have been washed because washing strips the natural protective coating. Refrigerated grocery store eggs will not work. You mix 1 part water glass to 10 parts boiled and cooled water. You pour it into the crock. You gently lower fresh eggs in, pointed end down. You cover it with a cloth and place it somewhere cool and dark, between 40 and 65 degrees. A basement, a root cellar, an unheated pantry. That is it. You walk away. Total cost, for 14 dozen eggs through 9 months of winter, comes in under $20. After that, $15 a year. You will spend more on coffee creamer this month than that crock costs to operate annually. Before I give you the secret from Sarah Lapp's notebook, one quick thing. Everything I've been digging out of these old USDA bulletins and these Amish cellars, I have put it all in one place, room by room, season by season. It's called the Old Country Almanac. Link is in the description. But stay right here, because what Sarah added in 1928 is the one thing that turns 9 months into 18 months, and almost nobody knows it. Here is the problem with the standard 1920 USDA method. At about the 7-month mark, the sodium silicate solution slowly begins to absorb carbon dioxide from the air gaps in the crock. The pH drifts, the seal weakens. The eggs are still safe to eat, but the yolks start to flatten, and by month 10, you are scrambling, not frying. Most modern homesteaders just accept this, but Sarah Lapp figured out how to stop it. In 1928, on the inside cover of the notebook her granddaughter still keeps in a kitchen drawer and bird in hand, Sarah wrote a single line in pencil. Add a heaping spoon of pickling lime to the water glass, stir until milky, then settle. Use the clear off the top. Pickling lime, calcium hydroxide, the same white powder every cucumber canning grandmother in the Mississippi Valley used for 200 years. $4 a pound at any canning supply store. 1 bag treats roughly 50 crocks. What the lime does, confirmed by a 1952 chemistry paper out of Penn State that cited Sarah by name in a footnote, although she never knew it, is buffer the pH of the sodium silicate against carbon dioxide drift. The seal stays tight. The eggs stay perfect for 18 months. Some homesteaders report 2 full years. This was the step the USDA bulletin never included. In 1920, the federal chemists tested only sodium silicate alone. They never tested the combination. Sarah Lapp, a 19-year-old farm wife, figured out with a pencil and a kitchen scale something the United States Department of Agriculture missed. Add the lime. Settle the solution overnight. Decant the clear liquid into your crock. Drop in the eggs. 18 months. From a 19-year-old in a farmhouse in 1928. That is the whole secret. You came to this video because the title told you something existed that you had not heard of. What you found was not a trick. You found a method the federal government taught your great-grandmother, then quietly forgot about when there was money to be made teaching her to plug something in instead. In the comments below, tell me this. What is the one food preservation method your grandmother used that nobody in your family does anymore? Maybe it was canning. Maybe a root cellar. Maybe a smokehouse out behind the barn. Tell me about it. I read every comment. Subscribe if you want more. Next week I'm going to show you the Amish method for keeping milk fresh at room temperature for 11 days. Using a 50-cent ingredient the dairy industry has been quietly burying since 1953. Until then, take care of your family, take care of your neighbors, and remember, the people who came before us were not stupid. They were not primitive. They were free. And the more of their knowledge we recover, the more of that freedom comes back to us.